Hello everybody, Edre here, and for anybody new here, I make casual reviews and they are just my opinion. So take everything I say with a giant grain of salt, and with that being said, today I'm going to be reviewing the brand new Lil Skies album, Unbothered. Like I do with all of my reviews, I always start with a bit of background on the artist that I am reviewing. And Lil Skies, what do I think of Lil Skies up until this point? A bit of background for those who don't know Lil Skies. Lil Skies he's a rapper who really dabbles in a lot of trap, pop rap, and honestly even a little bit of emo rap aesthetics here and there. But up until this point, very little of his projects have really grabbed my attention too much, as they always have just seemed at a lower level and lower quality than some of his contemporaries. That being said, I wanted to go into this project with open ears. After all, I've been wanting to hear some music of this style, some fresh music of this style, so I figured why not be more open-minded and let's just go into this. Musically, right off the bat, the number one thing that really stuck out to me across the board on this project, and especially on like the first part of this album, is that it's very similar to his previous projects. I mean, it's a very similar trap sound, very similar, usual sound that we are used to from Lil Skies maintains present on Unbothered. But I will say, however, that the sound on this album seems to be a bit more polished, a bit more well-formed, and well-crafted compared to some of his previous albums, which I felt may have been a bit too not as like concise, not as cohesive. I feel like this one kind of, for my ears personally, came across much more solid in terms of sound. That being said, songs like Dead Broke do give me some emo rap aesthetic vibes. Honestly, a track like Dead Broke could honestly fit, or the instrumental could fit perfectly in a Juice WRLD project. And overall, that's really the only main variation, unfortunately. I do find that my one major flaw with this album is the lack of diversity on here. A lot of the tracks go through a very similar trap formula, with a few changes here and there, but not anything too drastic. That being said, I want to talk a little bit about his delivery, his performance, and some of the standouts and low points in the track list. Delivery-wise, off the bat, I feel like Lil Skies has a much stronger delivery on Unbothered than he has really on his past albums. And the reason I think that is because he just sounds more focused. Vocally, he seems to be a bit more interesting as well. Personally, I don't think he's the best vocally out there in terms of the current wave of hip-hop and even this style of hip-hop. But I do think that he does put a bit more effort in. It does come across a bit more natural, and I do like that. The song Take 5, for example, actually might be my favorite on this album and one of my favorite tracks from Lil Skies to date. I think it has one of his strongest rap performances. The hook of the song, and by the way, I mean Take 5, not Track 5. Take 5, I just caught myself. Great delivery, great rap performance. However, I do think the hook is a little weak. It does drag it down a little bit for me. I wasn't too crazy about the hook on that track. But overall, it is one of the stronger tracks and one of my favorites on here, Take 5. However, I will say, an example of me not liking a track is On Sight. His sort of auto-crooning on this song doesn't come across nearly as innovative or interesting as his more aggressive style on Take 5, and unfortunately that is one of the tracks that really did stick out to me as being a lot less interesting. Unfortunately, tracks like Think Deep, Don't Sink also are another one that kind of didn't do too much for me. I was a little left disappointed. I felt that song specifically was dragged on a little too long, and I feel like it made his delivery get very tiring after 4 minutes. I did want to talk a little bit about the two tracks with the features. Excite Me featuring Wiz Khalifa actually surprised me. I relatively enjoyed that track. I thought it was one of the better ones, relatively decent. I think Wiz Khalifa sounded very smooth. And overall, I thought it was one of the better hooks and one of the better features on here as well. And then we have Having My Way with Lil Durk, a song that I initially thought was interesting. I liked it at first, but when I went back and listened to it, it had already weakened on me. And I think, unfortunately, that song didn't leave too much of an impact. Production-wise, I just wanted to say that it is better produced than I think any other project he has put out. That is obviously a plus. and I liked it. There was this kind of weird reverb on his voice on OK, which I did not like too much. And I honestly thought that the track OK was probably my least favorite on here. Thought it was one of the least compelling tracks on here as well. Didn't do much for me, and I thought that the odd production choices really did not help it. Overall, how do I feel about this project? I feel like I shouldn't like this album just because I really haven't been too into his previous works. However, I don't hate it. I really don't hate this album. You know, and even though there are many highlights on this album that I thought were good and enjoyable to my ears, unfortunately, I have to admit the flaws of this album are a bit too big to just ignore. You know, the longer this album goes on, the more monotonous it feels. And that is a bit disappointing because the album, in my opinion, starts off very strong, but unfortunately ends kind of weak. So at the end of the day, I was left honestly feeling indifferent. I was hoping I would like it, but the further I got into it, many of the tracks blended together. I felt that it seemed a bit monotonous and repetitive towards the end of the album. However, that being said, the track with Wiz Khalifa, you know, Take 5, for example, are all tracks that I think are some of Lil Skies' best material so far. And I only hope that he goes up from here. However, unfortunately, there was a lot of flaws on this album that unfortunately drag it down for my personal liking. And that is why I have settled on giving Unbothered by Lil Skies an okay 5 out of 10. Anybody new here needs to know anything above a 5 is good, anything below is negative, so a 5 is average. I didn't like this that much, I also didn't dislike it. Unfortunately, I feel like the flaws equally balanced out the pros of this album. That being said, I do think Lil Skies is moving in the right direction. If he can improve his sound even more on his future projects, he could spearhead this genre going forward. That being said, that's all I have to say. Lil Skies Unbothered. Okay, 5 out of 10. And goodbye.